Both candidates, as you intimated earlier, are painting a really bleak picture if the other candidate wins. What do you think that says about the current state of our political system?
Well, I mean, look at what's happening right now in Congress, where you actually have a bipartisan bill that most people in Congress support. And this is the bill I'm talking about, which would both secure our border, but also get some really critical aid to our allies in Israel, in Ukraine, in Taiwan. If that bill could just get to the floor for a vote in the House, it would pass. It's got enough bipartisan support. But we have a situation where a very narrow band of extremists in the House are preventing a bill from even getting voted on. And you're just sort of seeing this time and time again. We are starting to reach the point where we can't, as a country, even do the basic blocking and tackling of governing. We can't pass a budget on time. We can't solve any of our long-term problems, be it our fiscal situation, our debt. I mean, we are racking up $1 trillion in debt every 100 days. Neither candidate right now has anything to say about it, meaningful. Nobody in Congress is doing anything about it. We all know how bad the border situation is. And unfortunately, what happens in our system today is that over and over again, we have people who decide they would rather campaign on an issue than actually solve it. It's much easier to just demonize the other side and say it's their fault than to actually do the hard work to solve a problem.
Obviously, with the unity ticket, there would be a lot of bipartisanship right on that ticket. So, what were the top issues for No Labels in 2024? What did that platform and that policy look like?
Well, I mean, we had this common sense policy booklet I mentioned that we put out that had about 30 ideas in there. And the basis of these were just extensive research that we did over the course of a year to see where the public lands on a lot of key issues. So these were, we thought, 30 ideas that represented this is where most Americans want to go on most issues. Now, look, in the end, no presidential campaign would have been about 30 things. There are only about 3 or 4 things. I think a couple issues that would have defined a unity ticket, if there was one, was a common sense compromise that both secured our border but created a humane solution to deal with current immigration system in the country. So finding a solution for the dreamers, finding a way to have a kind of sensible, efficient flow of workers into the country. So that would have been one. Two would have been the fiscal situation. Again, our budget is the most predictable crisis that we have as a country. We are at a point now where every single year we now spend more on interest payments on our debt than we do on the entire Defense Department. And that is only going to grow over time. And somebody has to start a conversation on how we're going to deal with that. And then finally, there is a really worrisome strain of isolationism on the foreign policy front that I think you're seeing in both parties, on the left or the right. You see folks on the left who want to abandon Israel, a very strong traditional ally of ours. You see some on the right who want to abandon Ukraine and refuse to provide the help they need to fight the aggression from Russia. I think you would have saw a unity ticket really lean into those issues. But beyond these specific policy issues, I think the biggest difference you would have seen would have been just one of approach. What we are faced with today is every time we have a president who comes in, they assume they have a mandate they don't have. So they'll come in, they'll win a very narrow majority, they'll have a very narrow majority in Congress, and then they will act as if they are Ronald Reagan in 1984 after he won 49 states, or FDR in the 30s when he had the whole Congress. And they come in and they just try to jam things down the throat of the other party. And that creates a really vicious cycle where we never create any kind of durable change in the country. Every time a Democrat or a Republican passes something, the second the ink dries on that bill, the other party gets about trying to undo it. And that's just not a sustainable way to run a country.